Hi and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and today we're going to be taking a look at Overwatch's third digital comic, Going Legit, in which we see our chaotic junkers, Junkrat and Roadhog, attempt to do some legitimate work in Sydney that turns out to be anything but. We'll be taking a quick look through talking points and fun bits of the comic, along with a little light speculation on what new Overwatch story and lore, if any, we may have learned from it too. Suffice to say, this contains spoilers, link for comics in the description below if you haven't seen it already, totally check out the Madefire digital version as well. As a quick summary of the story, Junkrat and Roadhog are contracted by a man who we presume is the head of Hyde Global, a company with a presence in Sydney. The Junkers are hired to rescue some Hyde employees from rogue omnic terrorists, and in a quiet manner. Upon arriving, we see Junkrat's trademark decision-making and logic in practice, deciding to rig the entire building to explode just in case. Blowing a hole in the roof, our Junkers proceed to eliminate the supposed omnic threat, with Junkrat eventually destroying the entire building before remembering the hostages. As the two realise they've seen no hostages inside, discover that Hyde security bots are actually responsible, and the police arrive, our Junkers realise one thing: they've been set up. As they run from the police, a rather explodey, in Junkrat's words, revenge is sook, before our heroes swing off into the sunset on a zipline. Here's some of the interesting things I learned from the comic. Firstly, I love the background detail in this comic. We can see that Sydney, from this one panel alone, is clearly a place doing very well for itself, and has many big companies based there we know from other parts of the Overwatch universe. Sigma have a presence in Numbani. We can also see just in the background here Axiom, who might be construction based from this wall picture we see in their office, and even hidden in this panel, looking at reverse, what I think is Ironclad Industries, who we know as Torbjorn's former employers involved in the engineering world. Very obviously on the skyline is also Mecha, the mobile exo force of the Korean army. We wonder if their mech solutions or their force are perhaps being sold or used outside Korea now. Mecha, of course, are who D.Va currently serves under in protecting the China Sea area and perhaps beyond from the giant omnic that resurfaces there every so often. Finally, we can also see Kofi Aromo, I believe, the coffee company in Numbani, who also have crates visible in the deadlock base of Route 66. So lovely detailing by the artist and story team here. Really love this view of Sydney as a global powerhouse. The second thing that was pretty interesting is the introduction to Hyde Global. Now, this is a new company to us in the Overwatch universe. Not entirely sure what they're into exactly, but we know that their Australian building is only 3/4 complete, and from the final panels that they've been having some cash flow problems. The man we presume is the head of, or a senior member of the company, has been in Fame magazine, as we can see from the cover on his wall. I'm guessing that's the Overwatch equivalent of Time magazine in the US. If you're on the cover, you're pretty significant in some way, so he must be a pretty significant guy, which presumably makes Hyde a pretty significant company. They have shareholders, so they must be floated on some stock market or another. We see that in the final panels, as the shareholders need to be updated about the cash flow problem being resolved by the insurance claim that the Hyde employee is about to make. Mr. Fame describes the building he wants his employees rescuing from as a factory. When our Junkers get there though, it seems like more of a warehouse. Perhaps Hyde are into manufacturing of some sort, we'll see in future. It's known from their bios, but it's reinforced in this comic that our Junkers are anti-omnic. Roadhog in his old life as Mako Rutledge was displaced from his home when the Australian government gave the land surrounding the Australian Omnium to the Omnics in a peace agreement after the first Omnic crisis. The attacks of the Australian Liberation Front, that was formed by locals to take back their land, resulted in the Omnium's fusion core being destroyed and turned the area into a harsh, irradiated wasteland. Suffice to say, from living in this post-apocalyptic land, neither have particularly fond feelings towards Omnics. The boss of Hyde describes the terrorists, which turn out to be fictional of course, as omnic terrorists, which gets Junkrat pretty animated. He's happy that he can blow up bots and get paid for it. He's actually pretty happy to blow up bots anyway, as we know from a bunch of his voice lines in game. Junkrat also describes the city dwellers as pro-bot, compared to presumably Roadhog and his own life in the Outback, dealing with the Omnic crisis in maybe a more closer and personal way, due to their closer proximity presumably to the situation. Finally, the two seem to have a lot of fun blowing up the security bots, but I have a feeling they just enjoy destroying stuff anyway. Next, it's not a huge insight, but we see a little bit as to how Junkrat and Roadhog work together and team up. Junkrat seems to be the main talker and shot caller of the two. We know that Roadhog speaks in game, and Junkrat presumably can understand what he says from discussions between the two in the comic, but Roadhog in the comic is never given words directly. He's always represented by a series of full stops. I wonder if this was meant to perhaps represent maybe Junkrat's lack of hearing. Presumably all of his detonating of explosives has damaged it in some way or another, or perhaps the touch of madness we know he's got from radiation exposure, as detailed in his bio. Who knows? Junkrat, as we know, is a bit of a chaotic character, to say the least. He firmly believes that Roadhog and himself are the best people for a quiet job in the initial panels, before proceeding to mine an entire building, attract the attention of people who call the police, blow through the roof without thinking if there's anything below to catch his fall, blowing a hole in the side of the building, then forgetting about the hostages he came to rescue in the first place. Perhaps not the most reliable pair of contractors you'd take on for a job of discretion, but we know that Hyde Global didn't really want that anyway, right? Roadhog may even be the brains of the operation. He reminds Junkrat that they were asked to do the job quietly, points out the logo on the destroyed bots that proves they weren't terrorist omnics, and also points out to Junkrat that they were set up by Hyde when Junkrat was seemingly taking the businessman's self-praising speech of his personality at face value. Also, Roadhog is the one that saves Junkrat from the police when he gets angry at them calling Roadhog fat. Roadhog may not be over enamoured with Junkrat, but he's there for the treasure as we know, a half share of whatever it is that Junkrat found in the bones of the Australian Omnium. Whatever it is, it has bounty hunters, gangs and opportunists hunting him wherever he goes. An interesting story there for the future. Love to find out what it's all about. Finally, we're reminded that the Junkers are definitely deadly and not adverse to violence. After discovering that they've been duped, I was struck by the Junkers' swift and deadly revenge that they take on Hyde Global. There's no way that the Hyde Global businessman is surviving this explosion. The two, even if they've been duped in this panel, are still very much a very dangerous and deadly quantity. Thanks so much for tuning in to this quick analysis of Overwatch's Junkrat and Roadhog digital comic. If you like this video, please hit that like button below, subscribe, and comment with what Overwatch map, world or character story you'd like to see me cover next. I really appreciate hearing what you all think. The regular series of Overwatch hero interactions and voice lines vids goes out every Friday at least, sometimes twice a week. We also do Easter eggs, map lore and commentated gameplay vids and tips all on this channel too. Have a look at the links here. Until next time, I've been Hammeh, take it easy.